What is going on, Corner Talk family? It's so good to be back with you guys for another episode of Corner Talk. I got the one and only today, my guest, and we also got some big news, but he is your Brownfield youth pastor, the one and only Kaleb Stripling.
Man,
come on.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, bro.
I'm so excited to be on. Thank you for having me.
Dude, absolutely. This is like, you're going through a whole season of transition, a whole season of new, trying to figure everything out, trying to learn, trying to navigate preaching, trying to still navigate. You're in school still, like going to college, trying to navigate not even just the preaching, but the pastoring, then leading, then fundraising, like all the things. Dude, you're stepping into it.
It's a whole new lifestyle.
Yeah.
Whole new, everything's changed.
Yeah.
But it's a good change.
Yeah. So, okay, for those of you that don't know him, I want to give him the next, couple minutes real quick. Share a little bit with us about who you are, who is Kaleb Stripling, where did he come from, all that good stuff.
Man, so pretty much born and raised in Lubbock. I'm a Lubbock native. Little background about me. Went to Lubbock Cooper, grew up in Lubbock Cooper all my life. The old me, it's funny as we're saying this with the message I just had. The old me would have told you that I'm only a football player. And that's who I am. And that's what I put my identity in. So growing up, that's all it was. It was football, sports. Like I was athletic. Grew up in church. Grandpa, he's a pastor, so had the church background. But mainly it was just my athletics that I mainly focused on. So I worked really hard on that, and my mom and my dad, they poured into me so much in that to get me to where I wanted to be. So pretty much took that, ran with it. Had some issues I'm sure we'll talk about today, but had some issues, had some bumps in the road. But overall, mainly everything went well. I was able to finish high school athletics. I was blessed enough to go play college ball over in Abilene at Hardin-Simmons. Great experience. I'm still in college. I'm a kinesiology major, so I'm still pretty busy with that. But yeah, one day the Lord just said, "Hey, I think it's time for you to go home." I was like, "What? What? Here I am, this guy who's Mr. Football, like football sports only, and you're calling me to go home. What am I going home to?" And at the time, it was I got something for you, but I'm not going to tell you what.
Yeah.
And it was like, in that moment, it's kind of like, that's kind of it's kind of scary, because all I ever knew was this background. This is who I was. And now it's like, okay, you want me to step into something new, but I don't know what I'm stepping into.
Yeah.
And then now here we are, answered the call, opened the door, and ever since being back has been amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about transition is, dependent on the way that you transition, the way you leave one season determines how you enter into the next, and dude, there for a second, like we were having conversations even before you got here. So, I mean, little do people know, like I've known Kaleb for, several years now, gotten to become good friends with him. And there's over the years that he would just call, "Hey man, going through this. Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" Or just shoot a text. "Hey, would you be praying for me?" And I've enjoyed being that person for you. And I love and will always continue to be that person. But there was here like several months ago where the conversation was like, called him. He's like, "Well, at first you said, 'Hey dude, do you have time to talk today?' And I'm like, 'Yeah, dude, of course.' So then we get on the phone and I'm like, 'Hey man, I know you got something you want to say, but bro, I just want to throw this out here real quick, because I don't want what I'm fixing to say to be influenced by anything that you're saying. I don't want it to feel that way.' But I remember on the phone, I was like, 'Bro, have you ever thought about ministry? Like, I don't know what that would look like for you or anything.' And at the time, like, we didn't have any positions open. Like, there was no talks of anything like that. It was genuinely not even just like come to TWC. It was just an overall, have you thought about ministry? Have you ever thought about going into it?" And dude, we had that conversation and we talked through some other things and all of that good stuff. And you went through your own rough season recently. And so what's crazy is, on the other side of a rough season, so easily can our hearts grow bitter towards God and what he's wanting to do, because we see things through filters. And the part that I really admire about how you handled it was, even in the middle of adversity, you still stayed near to the Lord and say, "I know that the Lord's calling me home." And it would have been easier for you to throw in the towel and say, you know what, even if you did move home, you didn't have to pursue what the Lord had for you. You could have moved home and say, you know what, I'll just figure it out from here. I'll do it on my own. I thought that I had it right. Obviously, I didn't have it right. This
Mhm.
fell apart. Fell apart. I thought this was an open door. All of these different things. But what I admire was in all of it, when you got that first day that you came down here, we had a conversation. We went to walk-ons
Mhm.
and we were eating dinner. And the whole entire time, like you would tell me, man, my heart's hurting with this. I'm struggling with this. But at the same time, I also know that there's a level of peace that the Lord's given me. So I don't know, maybe share a little bit in that instance. And you don't necessarily have to go into full detail. You go into as much or as little. But in a case like that, when everything's closing in around you, and also the opportunity for something that you've never done has arisen, what does peace in that season look like? How do you discern? Because I've never been in that
Mhm.
situation. Like I've been raised in this, and I knew this is what I wanted to do, right?
Mhm.
But for you, like for a second, it's never really been a thought.
Mm-mm.
You had where you were gonna go. You knew this. God opened the door.
Mhm.
I mean, all these different things that played into it. Plus, on the other side of a massive blow up in your life, that your heart's hurting. So yeah, again, my question is, what does peace look like? How did you know what was peace? How did you know what was God? And how did you discern that in the middle of going through a horrible season while trying to pursue opportunity?
Man, honestly, and I mean this in the best way, but I had to recognize the chaos and recognize, okay, how do we fix this chaos?
Yep.
How it was like a survival instinct. It's like, hey, I don't want this to beat me up anymore. I
Yeah.
don't want to struggle with these issues anymore. I don't
Right.
want to go through this anymore. So, how now, knowing that, how do we find that peace?
Yeah.
And a big thing, I'm a huge Denzel Washington person.
Yeah.
Love him. Love his movies. Like I like him and I like the things he says. And so a quote I live by, and it's stuck with me for a long time going into the discernment. He says, you know, when you're praying, it's like a phone call, but there's two people on the line.
Right.
And there's someone on that line who wants good for you, but there's also someone who's gonna send you things that you think are good but aren't good for you.
Yeah.
And so in that season, it was a lot of me having to recognize, okay, am I in this for me?
Yeah.
Am I pursuing this for me or am I pursuing it for God?
Yeah.
And so when I got to college, it was kind of, okay, I want to do the college experience. And right then and there, that was the telltale sign of, okay, something's not right.
Yeah.
Something's not right. And getting into a little bit of it, just got involved with the wrong crowd.
Sure.
Got involved with the wrong crowd, wrong people. You know, nothing against the university or anything, but you know, a Christian, it's labeled a Christian campus, but not everyone follows that.
Yeah.
And no, you do have people who follow that, but I just so happen to fall into the people who didn't follow that.
Sure.
And that kind of was the turning point of getting off track,
Yeah.
getting off track of finding that peace. And so in that, just falling into the wrong things, falling for the world, falling for the world, had the worldly desires, the fleshly desires, and falling into that. But thankfully, I was still in church. I was still involved. We were still talking. I was still talking to PT, your mom, and everyone. And it was guiding me on saying, okay, you're admitting doing these wrong things. You're admitting this is the chaos. Now let's get better. But ultimately, what it came down to was, hey, do I want to get better?
Yeah.
Because the Lord had highlighted so many different things on, okay, hey, this is how we get better, but you got to follow through with it.
Yeah.
You got to follow through with, hey, this may not be for you. This is for you. This may not be for you. And so, in that, I remember I would just constantly, when I got to the point where I realized, hey, okay, something's really wrong here. Like my peace was gone. And that's what I labeled that season was I like giving seasons different titles to write down, like as if I'm writing a book on
Yeah.
my own life. And this season that I'm just coming out of was finding peace.
No.
And so in that, it was okay, how do we find this peace? And like I said at first, it was recognizing the chaos, recognizing what's wrong, what's causing me not to have that peace.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, like I was saying, I had you, I had the church there and I began to step into a new season. I got to give him a shout out. His name's Darius. Huge, like huge impact on my
Yeah,
life
come on.
over there in Abilene. So when I got there, he from the moment we met, he was like, "Hey, dude, I lead a life group. You want to join?" And at the time, I was like, "Nah, that's not for me. I don't think I want to do that." And the reason why I shout him out is it took him 3 months, 3 months, but he did not stop. He asked me every week for 3 months, saying, "Hey, life group's here. You want to come? Come on." And finally, it was that moment of saying, "Okay, you know what? He's gonna keep doing this, so I might as well just go." And sure enough, it turned into, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
like this is what I was missing.
yeah,
And that was now starting to open that door of, okay, this feels good. This has a peace feel to it, a safe
right,
feel to
right.
it. And since moving into that, then it fell into, okay, how do I get involved?
Yep.
And watching how me saying yes to something started opening more doors, then I got comfortable in helping out and reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, come join this life group." And then it got to a point where, "Hey, we think you should lead a life group."
Yeah,
And that right there was, okay, now I feel like we're moving in a direction where it's like,
right,
okay, this is to find peace.
right.
And so sure enough, got into that, started leading my own life group. I had partners with me that helped me lead it. And just in that season, it was okay. I feel like there's more.
Yeah,
I kept feeling like there was more, and the Lord was putting on my heart very heavy, "Hey, there's more. There's more to this," but I didn't know what it was.
yeah,
And I'll be honest, in that, it was almost like I was lukewarm. I was that label of lukewarm
sure.
Christian because, yes, here I am doing these things, here I am leading these things, but yet once I leave that, I'm going back into what the world has.
Right.
And it still had that disruption in my life. And finally, it just got to the point where here recently, I mean, I just came home a month and a half ago.
Yeah,
It's crazy to think I've been here that long, but it flew by.
yeah,
But honestly, just in the summer, we had our phone call. And that's kind of when I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I felt the disruption. And you even said it, like you didn't plan on us having that conversation like that. It just that was a me calling saying, "Hey, dude, this is what I got going
yep,
on." And that kind of was a highlight of, okay, now these things are going to start falling in line because the Lord had made it so clear, like, "Hey, I have laid out this path for you. This is the plan I have for you. You just have to follow it.
yeah,
You have to be willing to say yes. You have to grow intimate." And that was a huge thing that, and I'm even still working on it to this day. But without that intimacy, I probably wouldn't have had that. I
sure.
probably wouldn't have heard, "Hey, it's time to come home.
Yeah,
It's time to do these
yeah,
things." And so from that moment forward, it was finding that true intimacy where I could say, "Okay, God, this is what I'm struggling with. How do we fix this? How do we combat this?
yep,
I want to do this with you. I can't do this by myself
yeah,
anymore." And so moving forward, now we're on the path of, okay, the disruption, the enemy is attacking. Also another thing that Denzel Washington says, "If the enemy's not coming after you, you're probably doing something wrong." And it got to the point where I felt like every day was a battle.
yeah,
Every day was a battle. And it was like, well, now I don't know what to do. I just feel like I'm being attacked.
yeah,
But in that, it was because these doors are opening and it's now time to follow. And so in that intimate time with the Lord, it started after that phone call of, maybe you need to go home.
yeah,
Maybe you need to go ahead, just go back home. I didn't know what that looked like. I mean, I know we had the conversation, but it was like, I don't really know because I'm still in school. I'm still playing football. Like, I don't know. And as we're going, as time kept going, it just was more clear. Like, the Lord started having other people tell me it.
yeah,
Have my mom tell me, have your mom even mentioned it. Have you thought about coming back home?
yeah,
And it's like, whoa, I'm hearing this a lot. I start to hear this a lot. And so then now to really get into your question, once these things started, the main thing I asked for was, okay, Lord, I need peace
yep,
because it's hectic right now. I don't have this peace, and it's what I want. It's what I'm seeking. So what does this look like? What does it look like to have this peace? And I won't get into full details, but I mean, the blow up was crazy. Once I got to that point where I said, okay, I want to get rid of these things and I want to move into this new season, the enemy threw everything he had. And it turned into a whole thing where even like I had a lot of people concerned for my health and like my life in general.
Yeah.
And it was so bad. But in the midst of all that chaos, this is where the Lord is so good. In the midst of all that chaos, there was one day where I'm sitting in my room and I'm on the verge, like I'm just on the verge of tears. I'm like, man, what is this? Like, why? Why am I going through this? Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? How can we find that peace? What does that look like? And he said, go home. He said, go home. And it was clear. It was a clear go home. But I still did the human thing of no, no, there's no way.
Yeah.
I was like, I've already started classes, like everything's going, like there's no way. And sure enough, I questioned him. I questioned God. I was like, how?
Well, you start to question, like, even in that, like, just to pause for a second, what you're saying is, how human is it for us? Hold up. Was that God?
Yep.
Like, was that really God? Because God, this doesn't line up. You're asking me to drop everything
Mm-hmm.
over here. Like, this is school. School's not bad. You had football. Not necessarily bad.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who don't know, on the outside, you had it going for you. So even in that, that's really where the question comes from is, how did you discern in the middle of, is it God? Is it really you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? Are you telling me to go home? Like, how do you discern that? Is that mine? Oh, snap. You guys are about to see the one and only, the man that is coming from behind the... Go ahead, wave at the people. My guy. Y'all never see him. Y'all have only heard his voice like one time. It's like the very first episode. The other guy that's behind the camera, you don't ever get to see because he's mean. He doesn't want to be on the podcast. He's making mean faces right now. Also, I don't even know what this is. A white mocha. Dude.
The go-to.
Basic white girl season. Let me tell you, we are in basic white girl season. I already had a venti peppermint mocha or peppermint white mocha this morning.
Mm-mm.
This is the second one. Okay. Anyways, back to this. So in that, it's very human for us to wonder, because so quickly we can say, okay, that was God. I know that was God. I heard God. But then the next moment is like, okay, hold up a second. That's a big move. You didn't just do something that was tiny.
Mm-mm.
You uprooted your whole entire life. I'm going home. But going home wasn't just as simple as just going home. Like, you're packing up. We're moving. We talked with some people. We, brought some clarity to some things and made sure we smooth things out. And then you're also, at the time, this thing wasn't even really a whole opportunity. It was just more of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't move here for this. So again, like, as you continue into it, like, that's the one thing that I want people to realize. Like, you're not crazy for the way that you feel. If you have the questions of, God, is that really you? Like, that's such a normal thing that I think we all struggle with. The other thing that I want to highlight, and again, I want you to continue with this. We can jump into this later. I just don't want to forget it, is you said something in there to the effect of, do you want to get better? Do you want to be healed? And Jesus even asked that question whenever he was at the pool of Bethesda. He looked at the person and it's like, do you want to be healed? And for some of us, it's like, bro, I'm paralyzed. Yeah, I want to be healed. But we can say that on the outside all day long. The inside tells us, well, if I do get healing, am I still going to have my people?
Mm-hmm.
Am I still going to get the people calling me and reaching out to me? So the inside of us, the outside says, yes, I want healing. I want to get better. The inside, hold up a second. Because it is technically easier to be hurt. You know what you're going to get every day that you wake up. You know you're going to be sad. You know you're going to be depressed. You know you're going to have anxiety. You know all of these things. Technically, you don't really know what you're going to get with the healed version of you. You've not seen that version of you yet. or at least the new version
Mhm.
of healed, right? So you don't really have anything to go back to. You're walking into something new and it's unforeseen territory. It's foreign territory. So practically, like in this situation, just to kind of explain it to people, that's what you were walking into, foreign territory. Yes, you've lived in Lubbock before. You lived in Lubbock as a high schooler, though. You've
Mhm.
not lived in Lubbock as a full grown man, not knowing that God's got opportunity around that. That's true faith of, I hope to God that I heard you right and then I didn't just make an emotional decision. So
Mhm.
again, as you continue, I just want people to realize that the weight of a decision that he made on the instance of just go home. And it wasn't anything more than that. It was go home. And it's like, hold up,
Yeah. Huh?
you got more for me?
Uh-huh.
And that's all the direction you had. So anyways, I want you to continue, but I love, like, there's so much that I admire in this story because of the simple fact of you had so little from what God told you, but in so little you had so much to gain.
Mhm.
So anyways,
Yeah, it was just the questioning. So I heard it. It was that intimate time. It was in my intimate time where it was okay, go home.
yeah,
And it's like you said, I was literally like, that's it. Like, is there not a sentence or like it's just two words, go home. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, no, this can't be real. Like, what if it's my emotions? I just got off the phone with my mom. What if that's an influence? Like
right.
all these different factors. And so then I did the question thing. I said, okay, God, if this is true, if this is from you and I need to go home,
Yeah.
you're going to have to give me a sign.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to give me a sign. And this was on a Friday. And I said, you're going to have to give me a sign. And then I left it at that. I went to bed. And I woke up Saturday morning, and it's just, God is so good in this moment.
Come on.
I was like, hey, I need this sign. Like, I want this to be from you, but you're going to have to prove it to me that it's from you. And without any hesitation, the one thing that I have been searching for in this whole season, I finally felt. I felt peace. I woke up happy. I woke up refreshed.
Yeah.
Like, I woke up as if I had a purpose for that day.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I can get down with this. I like this feeling.
Come on.
And then it also began to shift of, okay, how do we keep this?
Yeah.
How can we keep this?
Yeah.
Because I don't want this to just be a sign. I want this to be for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
I want this with you.
You want it forever.
Yeah,
Happiness.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was another intimate moment. It was a sit down of, okay, Father God, how do we keep this?
Yep.
How do we keep this? And like you were saying, I had two words to go off of.
Yeah.
Go home. And so I asked more questions. I was like, how? And then he began to say, okay, so now we got to get rid of this.
Yep.
We got to drop these people. And that was the hardest one right there. The hardest one, the hardest thing. I love my heart, just where my heart is. I like relationships with people. I like to see the best in people, even though
100%.
they may not always be the best.
Right.
Like, even with the people I was running around with, even though it wasn't the best situation, I like to see the best out of them.
Right.
And so when he told me that, he was, hey, some of these people you gotta drop, because some of these people, and now this is what I'll forever live by, some of these people that you're trying to drag up to me, in reality, are just dragging you down and further away from me.
Yeah.
And so in that, I was like, that's keeping that peace, because I'm up here searching this peace, saying, hey, y'all come with me, when in reality they're bringing me into the disruption.
Yeah.
And so in that, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Like, and then it just kept going back to, you know what, you gave me the sign of this peace.
Yep.
This is what we need to do. This is what I've been asking for. This is
Right.
what I felt.
Right.
So Sunday comes along, go to church. Church was good. Had practice. We had practice after church. So I went through practice, and just the entire time in practice, I was like, I'm not feeling that fire for this anymore.
No.
Like, don't get me wrong, I still love football to this day, but it's not the same fire. I feel like this fire is being put out so another one can be lit.
Come on.
And I was like, maybe I need to follow through with this. So finish practice, finish everything. And as soon as I get in my car, I was like, maybe I need to go home. Maybe I need to go home.
Yeah.
So I went to my room and I just had that intimate moment again where I just sat down and prayed and I said, okay, you told me to go home. I think I need to go home. And the only thing I got out of that moment was yes.
Yeah.
And that yes was more powerful than anything I've ever heard,
Sure.
because it was so, like, it all caps is the best way to put it, is it was yes.
Yeah.
That's what I told you. Now let's follow through with it.
Yeah.
And it was so clear because all these things that I had been going through, all these things I was worried about, I knew I was going to have to break off relationships. I was in a relationship, and part of me leaving was, hey, this relationship has to end. And then some of the friendships I had was, hey, this has to end.
Yeah.
And so I'm questioning, I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know. This relationship has been for a long time. I don't know if I can do that. But in me thinking and questioning that, I was at peace with it. And that's how I knew, okay, I do need to do this. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. But at the end of the day, the more obedient you are, the better blessings that's coming out of it, because you're following through with what he has given you.
Yeah.
That way he knows, okay, I gave you this, you took it. Here's let's do more. Let's move on. Let's go with this. Let's run with this. And in that season, it was okay. It all you gave me was 2 words, but they were some of the most powerful words that I've ever heard.
Go home.
And now here we are. And even then, even though I had all that, I still did the human thing where I let the emotions play a factor. So, story on the leaving, I had to pack up. I didn't really tell people. I only told my mom, and all I told her was, "Hey, mom, I'm coming home." I didn't tell her all behind it yet. She knew the season I was in and everything, and it was, "Hey, I'm coming home."
Yeah.
And she agreed. She was like, "I think you need to.
Yeah.
So come home."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "All right." So I packed up that Sunday. It was Labor Day, so we didn't have school Monday, so none of the business offices were in. And then I began to let the emotions play a factor of, but what if they don't let me, do online classes, or what if they don't let me do this? And then again, it was the Lord saying, I got you. It'll be taken care of. And so come Tuesday, I'm all packed. I'm ready to go. I've told my people goodbye, broken off things that I need to break off. And I get in that business office, and it was, hey, no, we got you. We got you. We can move you to online classes.
Yeah.
Like, we can do this. And that was the first sign of me following through and being obedient to him, of him, that plan, like he had already said, hey, I have this laid out for you.
Yep.
Just follow through with it.
Yep.
Say yes and follow through with it. And so now everything's going good, and I hit the road. I was sad. I was leaving what I knew to go into something that I didn't. All I know here is the city.
Yeah.
And I know the people, like you, the relationships I have, I know the people. But all I ever knew at the time was I'm a football player and a college student. And now I'm just a college student. What does it look like now? Now I don't have that identity of this football player anymore. Now I'm moving into something new. What is it? And so on the drive home, I get about halfway, and I start to question, maybe I should turn around. Like, maybe it wasn't from him. Maybe not. Maybe not. And just once again in that moment, God was like, you're halfway here. You might as well keep going. I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I am halfway here.
Bro.
I might as well keep going. And then sure enough, as if it couldn't get any better, you text me and you were like, hey, you're coming home, right? And I was like, yeah, I am. And he was, all right, you want to meet tonight? You were like, you want to meet tonight? And that right there was, okay, this is going on for a reason.
Yeah.
This is happening for a reason. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And so in that, and now here I am in this new season of finding the identity, and I spoke on it last night in the message of, I was so caught up in what the world thought of me.
Yeah.
Versus in reality, hey, I'm a child of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the story I used with Zacchaeus and Jesus, Zacchaeus climbing the tree to see Jesus, Jesus called on him, even though he had all these titles of, the tax collector, is a notorious sinner. He had all these titles on him, so the world viewed him as this bad person. And I I fell into that of the world viewed me as this football player. I'm this. I ran with the wrong crowd, so I was a part of that crowd. And that's all I ever knew. Versus in reality, in the rest of the story in Luke, Jesus says, "Hey, you're son of Abraham, and you are now going to be used to find the lost."
Right.
And so it was, "Hey, I'm lost, but maybe God's using me now in a new season to help
Yeah.
find those lost people,
Right.
help in this." And now here we are. As you had mentioned in the beginning, now we talked, we sat down, we had conversations, some time passed, and here I am now in ministry. And a year ago, I would have never told you this is what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
And here we are now.
Bro, do you see through all of that, like, the blessing of a yes? You know, and I think one of the false or misconception might be a better word of obedience is obedience. Like, we live in a fallen and broken world, and obedience is still going to have some moments that hurt, that are rough, and you just said it. I'm halfway, and I don't know, man. Should I? And what's crazy and what's so powerful in that is the fact that you recognized not just physically, but even spiritually, I'm halfway. I'm already halfway there. And part of me wonders if some of the struggle is because we've limited our view of where we're at.
Mm.
You know, the issue is not looking back.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking back and taking a step back. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, sometimes you have to look back to see what God did then to know that he's going to do it again. That if God was faithful then, it's history with the Lord. We talked about it in previous podcasts, but it's history with the Lord of, you know what, God, you showed up back then. So I'm going to trust you in this now. And that trust is only developed through intimacy and obedience and just history over time with the Lord. But in that, you didn't ask for any of this, really. Was it a desire of your heart? I think you knew to an extent that maybe this could happen sometime.
Mm-hmm.
That I think you felt a tug on your heart that the Lord wanted to do. Here's what I'll say, and agree with this if it's true. But is it safe to say that it wasn't necessarily you thought, hey, I'm going to ministry? You just knew at some point that God was going to use you somehow.
Absolutely.
And so in that, it's realizing that God's got a plan. He's got a calling for your life. And the crazy part was I just got out of a message not too long ago called Open the Door. And in that, it's whenever Peter got arrested. And this is right after James had just got arrested, and James just got killed. So now Peter's arrested. I mean, you can only imagine what's going through Peter's head, or what should be going through Peter's head. Hey, bro, like, James just got killed. I'm arrested. Am I about to be killed? You know, he is on his way to be put to death.
Mm-hmm.
And what blows my mind, dude, is in the middle of that was the Bible tells us that he was sleeping. Bro, how are you sleeping on the other? Your homie just got killed. What's happening? And what I truly believe that it came down to is the peace that he got was a result of the history he had with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, you know what? If you take my life, I have everything to gain. If you don't take my life, I have everything to gain. Why? Because God is the center of my everything. And I truly believe that that was Peter's mindset. But the part where I think that your story and Peter's story resonate was you got told to go home. There's no telling what would have happened. I mean, whenever you called me, you're telling me, man, I'm in a bad place mentally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling. I've never felt this way before. Things are just not what they used to be, and I don't really know what to do. I mean, that was genuinely the conversation at first before it was anything like, hey, come home. It was because for a second, we're trying to make it work where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know what? I'm here. Like, I need some help. I don't know what to do. That's the conversation. So Peter, this angel came to Peter, and Peter's in between two guards. And the angel says, hey, you need to get up, get dressed. Like, we got to go. And it says that then when Peter got up, the chains fell off. And I think the common misconception, again, is just because God spoke it, like, doesn't mean that it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
God's a powerful God, but the other thing that he is too is a gentleman, and he's never going to force you to do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
Nope.
You know, because if you're not willing to get up, you're not going to be willing to withstand everything else that's coming and the pressure of what God's trying to bring into your life. If you can't even be obedient with the simple, you're never going to be able to sustain where God's taking you and what he's bringing you into. I mean, the weight alone of that calling, it's one thing to step into it, but another to live it out.
Absolutely.
It's one thing, everyone wants to do it, and then you're in the middle of it, and then the crushing weight of that alone will take you out. And I mean, we see it all the time, not just necessarily in ministry, but everywhere. Like, everyone wants to, man, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to go be this, and everyone wants to go be a college football player. I mean, you live that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a whole different game from high school.
Insane.
It's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really have time for friends or anything like that. Like,
Nothing.
it was, this is what I'm doing. I eat, sleep, drink, and occasionally poop.
Occasionally.
You know, eat, sleep, drink, and breathe football. And with Peter, you see Peter, he said, and then when he got up, that's when the chains fell off.
Mm-hmm.
You got up, you made a decision, stepping into, for all you knew, was foreign territory. And God started providing the way along the way.
Mm-hmm.
He provided little signs. Hey, it's kind of like comfort to your heart. That
Mm-hmm.
in those instances of, God, are you going to show up? God, are you going to do this? God, what are you going to do? God didn't give you any more direction. He didn't.
Nope.
He told you what direction to go. What you did, and what I love, and if we can all learn from this, is get up, go in the direction that he called you to go, and he's going to give you the encouragement to get you the rest of the way there. It was, hey, go home. Then it was, hey, you're already halfway here. It wasn't, hey, go over here, take a right, and then you're going to see. You still didn't have any answers. I mean, you're getting encouraged and not knowing what it's going to look like. You didn't have a job. You just, I'm going to go home. You worked with your uncle for a little bit, and next thing you know, hey, bro, let's go sit down. Let's have a conversation. And that didn't even come out of you asking for it or anything like that. It came out of, because this is genuinely what it was. And for everyone out there, whenever when we were looking, I was looking for everywhere. We needed a youth pastor. I needed a guy that's going to be passionate about the youth ministry. And I'm looking. And it just got to a spot after a conversation. I was like, you know what? This might be the guy. Like, and so I remember talking with someone about it. Who was it? I don't remember. The name will come to me in a second. But I was talking with someone, and they're like, bro, are you sure? Like, he's never done ministry. He's never preached. And I'm like, I don't need him to know. Maybe that's the issue. This one's deep. Maybe the issue is getting people who think that they know it all and have it all together, and they're trying to play God rather than just bringing someone in who has no choice but to lean on God.
Come on.
And I don't say that to give you a big head, so keep your head small. But I mean, the reality of it is, in this season, what you're overall and still learning. I mean, you just preached your first message last night, and if we're being honest, the message was great, but getting to that surface, it was a little chaotic. You had some opposition come up against you. You had a hard night in the sense of, like, this didn't go to plan, this didn't go to plan. So you're still learning what's it look like to lean on God. I mean, you're really still not even out of that season, you know? So in this, I mean, we have some time left, but what does that look like for you now? Like, you got here, you're doing what God called you to do. You got up, the chains fell off. You're in a better headspace mentally. But what's your drive now? Because you're still leaning on God. You're still in a season of, I don't know what I'm doing. Still trying to figure it out. So for someone out there that might be in the same boat as you, that they were obedient, they're here. I'm seeing some of the blessing. Here's the only thing, Kaleb, is you can't fight today's battles with yesterday's word. So you got here off of yesterday's word, but what's your drive for tomorrow? Like, really, like, explain that to me. What keeps you going? What keeps you knowing that, hey, I made the right decision? And for those people out there that are maybe in a transition season, whether that's regardless of a city, it's work, it's a relationship, what would you say is necessary and needed to keep a consistent drive to realize that even whenever little moments like last night, it would have been so easy for you to say, like, all right, bro, like it's my first night preaching and
Mhm.
this happened. But if you focus so much on that, you don't get to the end of the night where you had 30 plus kids in the altar.
Mhm.
So again, question is what is necessary and needed in this season for you to maintain that consistent drive to keep pursuing what God brought you into?
First and foremost, stay humble.
Yeah.
You can't let your pride or your ego get big.
Yep.
Now that the Lord has called me into this and he has blessed me with these opportunities. Now it's so easy for me to say it would be easy for me to say, well, I did this on my own.
Yeah.
I did this. You gave me a word, but I was the one who followed through with it. I did this for me. I did this like me. So first it's, hey, thank you. It's not a I did this, it's a thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking me out of this situation and blessing me with something even better.
Right.
Also in that is thank you for blessing me with the people who are going to be here for me in the long run. Like my biggest thing, and I mean, you've known it, I've told you, I can't thank you enough. The guys behind the camera, I can't thank them enough. Like this whole
Hey,
stuff. I know.
they're okay. I mean, Zach's cool. Jordan's not because Zach brought me my coffee even on the set of a
Mhm.
podcast. So for those of you who are wondering earlier, for those who aren't watching but y'all are just listening to the audio, again, basic white girl season. So venti white mocha, and Zach was like, you know what? Let me go hook my guy up and
What a
make
guy.
sure that he gets this. So Jordan's okay, but Zach, you the man. I'm just kidding,
You are.
Jordan. I love you, bro. You don't have a mic, but you don't love me. That's
He's
sad.
thinking about it.
He's thinking
He's
of
like,
okay.
mm. But no, honestly, it's so now it's like I said, I surrounded myself with the wrong people. Now the Lord has put the right people who I can lean on, people who also are going to lean on me.
Yep.
And so in that, keeping that and still, okay, we got to move forward because it's like you said, we can't look back. I looked back. I kept going, but I looked back.
Yeah.
So now I can't keep looking back
Right.
because the more you look back, the better it's going to look. The better the enemy is going to make it to where it seems like, hey, this is really good because you keep looking. So I'm just going to make it look better and better.
Right.
So now you can't look back. Now it's okay. What do I have? What has the Lord blessed me with in this season? For me right now, it's y'all. It's the staff. It's the people in my life. And so in that, now it's okay. The Lord blessed me with these people, so I want to do good for them.
Yeah.
Granted, I want to do good for the Lord. That's who it's for. But I also want to do good for these people. I want to do good for you. I want to do good for the staff because y'all took you may not say it, but y'all took a gamble. Y'all took a gamble on, okay, this kid doesn't know ministry. Like this is something new. And y'all took that risk and y'all took that gamble. And for that, I thank y'all. I thank you. And so now I want to honor that. Find those things that you want to honor in that season and keep going. And then it goes back to, hey, now you got to lean on the Lord because you have walked out. You've been obedient to what he has called you in. The enemy doesn't like that.
Right.
The enemy's now, like I said, the enemy threw everything that he could at me where I was to keep me there.
Yeah.
Now I'm in a different season. Now he's trying to figure out, okay, now what can I throw at him here?
Right.
What can I get to attack him?
Yeah.
And so now it's more important than ever to, even though I had that intimacy over there, now I got to grow it.
Yeah.
It's got to keep growing. And so it's finding that intimacy with the Lord on, okay, yeah, we did this. We made it through this season, but we got to keep going. We can't flatline. We can't just get comfortable. We can't coast. It's time to keep going. It's time to say, you know what, Lord, let's walk this out.
Yeah.
Let's walk this out together. But most importantly is staying humble. Because last night, I mean, my heart was so happy.
Yeah.
My heart was so happy last night. We weren't sure how it was gonna go. Weren't sure how the kids were gonna react to it. And I told everyone in the office yesterday. I was like, it was like the confirmation from the Lord. And also, you know what? I'm glad I said this because that's also another reason is once you find that confirmation of why God did it, it makes you feel better. Because last night, like I'm not an emotional person, but on my way home last night, I bawled.
Yeah.
I bawled my eyes out. It was pure tears of joy.
Hey, I get it, bro.
It was
I'm a crybaby.
it was pure tears of joy. I was like, man, I'm hanging around Hunter too much. He's rubbing off on me.
That's wrong, bro.
I'm
It's
just
not wrong to be vulnerable, okay?
not
It's
at
okay
all.
for all the men out there. It's okay to cry.
Hey, come on. It is. And I did. Last night I was bawling, but it was because in the moment of the announcement, I just so happened to take the time to look at the students of when they said, "Hey, this is your new youth pastor." And I looked up and looked at them, and it was all smiles, and it was all not, "Oh, this is a new guy, like
Yeah.
we don't know what this looks like." It was, "Hey, we're glad. Like, thank you, God." And
Yeah.
now, like, Instagram, like, the kids are thanking, like,
Posting
like,
and
yeah,
everything, bro.
it's
You're
so great.
popular.
And it's like the confirmation from the Lord saying, "Okay, I did this for a reason. Now let's keep going."
Yeah.
And so my heart is happy, and it's like, you know what? I want to keep this feeling.
Yeah.
I want to keep this. Okay, I'm happy. If you're blessing me with this, let's keep it. Why
Right,
not keep
right.
it? So now it's time to lean even more on him and grow closer with him.
Yeah, I love it. I think that my favorite statement out of all of that, you take the two H's, humble and honoring. If you can remain humble, remember where you came from. Remember that the only reason we're here is because God allowed us to be. I mean, that's every single one of us. Every single one of us. The reason that we are where we're at, whether you're in a church, whether you're in the business world, whether you're working at United grocery supermarkets, whatever it is, you're where you're at because the Lord has allowed it. Like, don't lose the humbleness in that.
Absolutely.
But then it's also on the other side, now that the Lord has given you and brought you into this, and we don't deserve it, the least we can do is at least honor him by doing everything that we do in excellence. And that's Colossians 3:23. That's one of our staff core values. We just went over that in whatever you do, in whatever is defined as whatever. And whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart as working for the Lord and not human masters. So I love it. But we're out of time. But, bro, I really do appreciate you being on the podcast.
Appreciate you having me.
Real, being vulnerable. I'm excited for this next season. You guys will probably hear from him again soon, maybe in the next several months, and we can talk about, bro, what has the last several months been? Did you find out that youth kids are stinky? Did you find out that, are you still wanting to do youth ministry? No. But we're excited for what God's going to do in your life, man. I'm praying for you. Blessed to be in your corner, literally in the corner, Corner Talk podcast.
There you go.
No, we're excited for what God's going to continue to do in your life. It's a blessing. But again, thank you for being a part.
And thank you for having me.
And yeah, man. Well, guys, make sure again that you guys like, share, subscribe. Don't miss out on any of the future episodes. But listen, we love you so much. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Hey everyone, Hunter Turnbow here, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for Corner Talk Podcast. I hope that it encouraged you and empowered you. Make sure that you guys share this with someone because hopefully it can encourage them and empower them as well. But till next time, we love you guys so much.